Good evening, and welcome to Soluble, America's Political Central. 28 days, people, when we will be going to make a vital decision in which direction that this country we call America will go. 28 days until the midterms. 28 days. We got some decisions to make. There's a lot at stake. There's a lot at stake for this democracy in this day and time. In the volatile way that the Republicans stood by and let the former president compromise our institutions and turn what was once a sacred office into a clown show. So 28 days until the midterms. What do you, as the American voter, feel like is most at stake? From the right position and from the position of the left, there's two different opinions, two different views of what's best for America. Two different views of what's best for America in the direction that we should be going as a country. So our position here at Soluble is always looking for the solution. Of course, we want a Democrat in office at all times. But whatever party is running the country, we want that party or that president to succeed. That's always been the American way. You're not of my political flavor, but to the victor goes the spoils. I mean, you won, so you're my president. Those days are long behind us. It seems. But it wasn't like this not so long ago. So it's time to vote. It's time to vote. A lot of us have made up our mind, and maybe some are still sitting on the fence or just waiting for the day to come. But turnout is going to be key. A huge turnout will guarantee a continued Democratic majority. Now, going forward this week and up until the election, we're going to make the argument, make the case, if you will, from the right side of the aisle and from the left side of the aisle when it comes to the concerns of the American voters, what's on their minds, what things they want to see getting done. It's not really a stark contrast, a big difference. I mean, I think both parties want what's best for America, but they have two different approaches for it. So we're going to call it out on its merits, if you will. We're going to call it out on what's actually going on the ground. Do some fact finding, try as best as we can here at Soluble to be factually correct on whatever the issue is. But as I said, we're going to begin to, we're going to begin to break them down, all of the issues that's affecting us as Americans, and let you make the decision. Not saying that you can't see what's going on also, but we challenge any podcast out there, any political podcast out there to hold politicians, period, feet to the fire. If there's a politician that comes on Soluble to interview or to debate, they have to answer the questions. They can't dodge, they can't spin, because the show will not go on unless we get a direct answer. I mean, we'll hammer, we'll badger, we'll continue to ask until we get a solid answer. So that's one of the things about Soluble that is going to separate us from a lot of the rest. We'll either shut the interview down and declare whoever the politician is, whatever side of the aisle he's on, whatever political stripe. If he doesn't want to answer the question, we'd rather cancel the interview altogether. We'd rather cancel the debate altogether if we can't get an outright honest answer finally for the American people. Now you don't see a lot of shows, and I'm not trying to separate us from the others or cast down others to bring us up, but you don't see too many shows doing this where they ask the question, and as soon as they ask it, then the politician is able to start to spin. I mean, if his final answer is his final answer, let him be judged accordingly. But here at Soluble, we're always looking for the solution. That's what we're debating for. That's what we're on air for, to help find a solution, to get back to the time where we could have civil discourse, at least get back to civil discourse, and those were the good old days based on what's going on now in American politics. Those were the good old days. So that's just the least of, what's at stake when we get ready to go to the polls in 28 days. If you like the way it's going, you'll vote Democrat. You will trust in the process. You will let the process play out, and you will keep the majority going. If you don't, you'll make a decision otherwise. But as we go Democrat, and Democrats happen to be the majority right now, we have to hold them in a high regard, because right now they're holding the reins of power. It's their watch. It's a Democratic watch right now over the Republic, and not a Republican watch, but it's a Democratic watch. So we definitely have to hold them. We definitely have to hold them accountable and to the highest standard when it comes to doing what's best for the American people. There's a lot of uncertainty in the markets. Prices weeble and wobble. Prices for food, gas, housing, they weeble, they wobble. We have, it's volatile times in the markets. And, it's easy for the party that's not in power to point the finger at the party that is, to say, see, and, try to play gotcha games. But, the truth of the matter is, since in this post-COVID era, it's affected world markets. It's not just America. Prices are being affected around the world in other countries also. And, the president is doing the best he can with what he has to work with. But trust and believe, it's a worldwide phenomenon, if you will, that's going on. And, instead of tying the president's hands, when we really should be rallying behind him as a country. And, he's our president. We should be rallying behind him to make sure that we can do the best we can do to make America come out stronger on the other side, whether it's stronger economically, militarily, socially. We should be rallying together. That's the solution. That's the solution. And that's what we here at Soluble are here for. The solution. What's at stake in these 28 days? I mean, you have serious political candidates, and you have wannabes. And it's sad to say, as I said, we tried it. It didn't work. We brought in a president. We voted in a president that really had no political experience, no political background, no real knowledge of what it takes to run a government. Running a government versus running a real estate business, there's apples and oranges. It's two totally different things. Balancing the books of a federal budget versus balancing the books of a real estate firm. They're two totally different things. But nevertheless, the former president, he got the vote, and he was in power for 4 years there. And let's not kid ourselves. I mean, we have We have our foreign allies wanting to know what's going on in America. What's going on? And not just, for the president to show out the way he showed out, but you have Republican legislators, lawmakers who've been on Capitol Hill for years that wouldn't call the president out on his behavior, on his actions. They basically stuck their heads in the sand while the president just compromised all our institutional norms. And you have to ask yourself, once again, what's at stake if we put this party back in power? What's at stake? Your freedoms, your protections. Scare tactics won't work. We need to look at where, the rubber meets the road and do what's best for the American people. I mean, it should tell us a lot about the party, and what's at stake in this election when they won't stand up to the former president when he was wrong, when he showed himself on a number of occasions to weaken national security or be a threat to national security or to undermine our own national security. And legislators who've been in office for years wouldn't rebuke it, wouldn't stand up to it. So will we turn back the clock to a time of unqualified politicians? And that's what we got here, in a lot of cases now. We got these Trump acolytes who come along and do the same thing that the former president has done. Lie, insult people, personally attack people. Because, I've stated here several times on this broadcast, the reason that's being done because they can't run against them on their record. It's hard for a Republican politician right now today to run against a Democrat on the Democrat's record. So what do you have? What's at stake when you put unqualified politicians in office? You've seen the effects of the last 4 years or of the last administration. You've seen the effects of it. When inexperience resides in the Oval Office, you've seen the effects of it. Now, here you have Dr. Oz, Herschel Walker. What public service has Herschel? What public service has he done? What public office has he held? And what was his record in that office? To my knowledge, and if I'm wrong, we stand for correction here at Soluble. So please feel free to do so. But to my knowledge, a great football player and a Christian. And we want to rubber stamp him, well, as you were. The Republicans want to rubber stamp him in to the office. So could you imagine Herschel being a senator with no experience, no qualifications, no nothing? So pretty much the question for Georgians is, do you want a candidate holding the office of Senate for the state, and he's basically a rubber stamp where he's told where to sign and when to sign and what to say? Because he doesn't know beans about politics. He doesn't know beans. No experience. But the Republicans want to rubber stamp him in. So this just show you just how low they would go. They don't care if he's qualified. They don't care if he's, pro-life, but in the privacy of personal situations that are not good for him, he's pro-choice. They don't care. They don't care what side of the fence he stands on, truly on his beliefs, where he truly stands. What all they know is that Herschel will come in and he will rubber stamp any piece of legislation that they put before it without reading it, without understanding it. He will just sign off. And that's good enough for them. That's good enough for the Republican Party. But for you, the American people, you have to ask yourself, how insulting can this be? But this is, what happens when you're not qualified and you're just placed there as if it's some kind of a popularity contest and you're not there to do the job and the will of the people. I mean, by example, we want to see the former president succeed, but it just, like I said, the disqualification, the lack of knowledge of the office and what it takes to be president, it showed in every way. I mean, I'm Democratic, and I felt sorry for him when Nancy Pelosi stepped out of the Capitol meeting with her red trench coat on and put her sunglasses on and strutted down the Capitol steps. A winner. Because the president did not know how to negotiate. He wasn't a skilled negotiator. He wasn't skilled at diplomacy with the House Speaker. And she outwitted him. She checkmated him. Got what she wanted and threw on her long red trench coat, as I said, and her sunglasses, and strutted down the Capitol steps. Like the bad mamma jamma she was. And the president, he's there stumped. Now, with Nancy Pelosi, that's a great day for democracy in America. And I know that depends on what side of the aisle you stand on. But that was a great day for democracy in America. But can you imagine if the president is with a foreign leader, a foreign adversary, and he gets outwitted? He gets checkmated on the world stage? That's not good. That's not good. But that's what's at stake. That's what's at stake in 28 days. In 28 days. Now, as I said, we've seen it. It stuck out like a sore thumb. It stuck out like a sore thumb. With the former president's lack of knowledge, not being qualified for the job that he was elected to do, we somewhat started to become the laughing stock. Can you imagine that? What we consider the leader of the free world, the most powerful man in the world, causing the country to become somewhat of a laughing stock. Why would we go back to that? But that's what's at stake. You have Dr. Oz in Pennsylvania. Personal attack. I mean, here's a man in Mr. Fetterman who's, he's had a stroke by all accounts, and he's been open, he's been honest. Is this, a man seeking this kind of job because he's power hungry? He's destitute for money. He's a he's a popularity hound. I think not. I think not. I think that patriotism came knocking. Excuse me. I think that patriotism came knocking, and Mr. Fetterman answered the call. And in spite of the fact that he had a stroke and that he's not in the best of health, but perhaps the doctors are telling him that he will progressively get better as long as he followed the regimen that they've set for him. He's running. He's right there putting himself, on the line. In spite of his health, he's toiling on for the love of country. For the love of country. And here you have Dr. Oz, straight out of New Jersey. Straight out of New Jersey. And somehow, he's got the concerns of Pennsylvanians on his mind. He knows the concerns of Pennsylvanians when he's not even a native of the state. Come on. It's ridiculous. It's ridiculous. We don't know right now where the Republican Party stands if they were to be in power again. You know, it's really a roll of the dice as to the question of if we can trust the Republican Party in power again. I mean, the demagogue Liz Cheney, the demagogue Representative Kinzinger, for being on the January 6th committee, for standing up for the truth. No party support. Maybe in hushed whispers. Maybe behind closed doors. Where's the moral character? Where's the courage? Excuse me. Where is the courage to come out of the shadows, if you will, to say, you know, Congresswoman Cheney is right. I may not agree with her approach. You know, I think maybe she's hit the president a little too hard personally. But, you know, at the end of the day, when it comes to threats to democracy, to our laws, and to the way, you know, peaceful transfers of power, she's right. But you have nothing. You have crickets. You have silence, basically. So this is the party that is asking the American voter to put them back in charge, to put them back in power again. And, you know, the world is at a critical mass now where, you know, there's a lot of countries that want to see America fail. They want to see America lose its spot as the number one country in the world. A lot of our adversaries. So this is not the time for beginner politicians who make it up as they go, who don't even really understand real legislation and what it means. You know, we're not going to knock candidate Walker because his son speaks out against him, because he's wavering on whether he's pro-life or pro-choice. Here at Soluble, in order to solve what's going on with American politics, we knock Herschel Walker. We think he's negative as a candidate because he has no experience. No experience. Zilch. Zero. And you can pretty much take our word for it here at Soluble that if he gains the office, if he gains the office of Senate for the state of Georgia, he will simply be a rubber stamp with no understanding of legislation. It's a good chance that he will have a limited ability when it comes to even reading legislation, let alone understanding it. So, you know, he'll have someone like the likes of Ted Cruz or Rick Scott telling him, oh, sign right there. And that's fine with them. That's all they want is a number. They don't care if he can't argue, you know, the issues, or he don't know the negotiating techniques to work across the aisle with the opposing party. They don't care. And this, ladies and gentlemen, is a danger to democracy. And it's what's at stake going into the midterm election before you cast your ballot. Do we want this inexperience? A party in power that's ready to investigate, but legislate on your behalf and what's best for you, the American people? Very little time for that right now. Later for that. The rich are getting richer, and hey, as a Republican, that's fine by me. Before they even read over the president's new tax laws or the plan he has to hire more IRS agents, before they can even read over what the president is trying to do, they're ready to attack it. They're ready to tear it down because they don't want to be open and honest with the American people about what they're paying or what their earnings are. They feel like that's big government. But they'll let these big corporation companies go after me and you to stick it to us, the everyday working people. And that's another reason why largely that we're in the Democratic corner. for the middle class, for the working people, because we're the ones who carry America on our shoulders as taxpaying citizens. There's a lot of uncertainty with foreign governments. Saber rattling. North Korea is firing missiles over Japan, testing missiles on a regular basis. We see, daily what Russia's attempting to do in Ukraine since February. Threatening nuclear war, threatening the use of nuclear weapons. It's a critical time now. China is chomping at the bits to see us fall as a country. These are the things that are at stake, and why we should take a long look at our candidates and decide whether we want this inexperience in office. But as I said, going forward, we're coming up these 28 days into the election, we're going to take issue by issue with the American voter. We'll start off with crime. We're going to take issue by issue, and we're going to look at it from what we see here at Soluble is the position on the left, and what we see here at Soluble as a position on the right, Republicans and Democrats. And we're going to put it all out there in black and white, in the most honest of terms that we know how, so that, you can make a decision. You probably already know, but, hopefully we here at Soluble can reaffirm what you already know. Because, we're watching, and the American voter is ignorant by no means. We're very informed. We're very much aware of the issues, the policies, and what side of the issue and our policy that any political party and any political individual is leaning toward. We've never seen anything quite like this. Turning back the clock, if you will, to a time where freedom wasn't free, that America looked like the giant hypocrite to say it was a country and a land of freedom when people weren't free, didn't have the freedom of due process, freedom of speech, basic rights. The dark ages of Americanism. That's what's at stake. That's something to take a long look at, because, if we don't stand up for the truth, then where will we be? What kind of country will we be? Can we survive as a democracy off of alternative facts? Can we survive as a democracy off of alternative facts? I think not. I think not. It will erode our integrity in our major institutions. I mean, you see what's going on with the Supreme Court now. But, do the Republicans care about turning the country upside down? No. They're gonna take this step. They're gonna push it. They're gonna lie. They're gonna cheat. They're gonna say, hold the tape. Because if it happens, if it happens and the shoe is on the other foot, then we won't do it. But you see what happened. So if they're gonna misinform you when it comes to Supreme Court nominations and whether or not they're gonna hold hearings and thus and such in an election year, what else would they mislead you and lie about? So, today the Supreme Court is tainted. Who knows? Tomorrow, if we let Republicans back in power, it could be the FBI. It could be the CIA. Classified documents don't mean nothing no more. The president's kids can have them. showing them off to their high school friends or showing them off to their college roommates. How absurd. How absurd that sounds. But that's the risk. That's what's at stake. The integrity of office. The integrity of office. So we have 28 days. And here at Soluble, we're asking you to take serious and careful thought with it. Take a long look at both parties. If the Democratic Party has fallen from grace, where? How? Where? How? We've had back-to-back presidents who are trying to do what's best for America. Clinton, Obama, and now Joseph R. Biden. All working to do the best they can for America. And you have the Republicans, on the other hand, who are willing to look the other way while a president comes into office with blood on his hands, cheating, won't reveal his taxes, threatening his college professors with his sicking his lawyers on him if they release his grades. What did the president have to hide? So, honest and open government for the people, of the people. That's what's at stake. What does this president have to hide? And if politicians are going to look the other way as he hides it, while he hides it, while he attempts to hide it, then you have to say, what is the party capable of hiding? What is the party capable of hiding? Will they do an insurrection cover up? Will they sweep it under the rug? Well, there's nothing to cover up. It's all right there for the American people and the world to see, and did see it. Saw it. What is the final bill here? What is the bill for the damages that we, the taxpayers, are stuck with? To rebuild, to repolish, to refurbish the nation's capital. What is that bill? What is that final tally? Does the former president, does he want to take up that bill, as he assured his campaign followers that he would take up the bill if they sock somebody in the mouth or beat the crap out of them, and he would get his lawyers involved, they would take care of him? Where is he at now? Does he want to cut a check? Does the former president want to cut a check for the damages at the nation's capital that happened on January the 6th, 2021? This is what's at stake, folks. This is what's at stake in 28 days. Even if you're not Democrat, you can at least say that the Democratic Party president right now is working as hard as he can for the American people. Of course, we need new blood in. And that will come down the road in the future. Of course, we need new blood, fresh Democratic blood, fresh Republican blood, younger leaders. I agree. But right now, the president is holding the ship steady. He's like a captain navigating a great ship through troubled waters. Has the boat rocked some? Yes, of course. As I said, it's a post-COVID world. The markets have been terribly shaken up. We're not sure here at Soluble if all the shipping channels have been unsnarled or freed up to where we can have the same volume that we had pre-COVID. We're not sure, but what we can be assured of is that the president is working as hard as he can to come up with solutions to make, your lives better, the American people. And here's the plus to it. It doesn't matter what political stripe. You've seen him down here in Florida. You've seen him down here in Florida. He could have stooped to the Governor DeSantis level. He could have played politics like the former president, where they've said bad things about me, like it's his money and not the taxpayers' money. He's president of the United States of America, and because somebody said something that was unflattering or that he didn't like, now he wants to hold up taxpayer money. That's what got him in trouble with Ukraine and the bribery thing. But back to my point, you see the president being the bigger person, and you see Governor DeSantis here. He don't want no COVID funds. He don't need these funds, and he don't need big government. He don't need none of that big government here, there, nowhere. Okay, all of a sudden here comes Hurricane Ian. The Southwest coast takes a devastating hit, and he's right there towing the line, right there beside the president, slightly behind him, towing the line, like a little schoolboy who's going to be good, so he makes sure he gets all his lunch money and a little extra for a treat. He's standing right. He's a good boy now. I mean, come on. Come on. But President Biden doesn't have to fake it to make it. He's a genuine guy. He's an everyday man. He's an everyman. He knows that as president, the buck stops with him. So nothing's at stake right now when it comes to a president taking the bull by the horn, taking responsibility, knowing that the buck stops with him. Unlike the former president, he loves to revel in his own glory and talk about how brilliant and how bright he is. But soon as a question comes up where he doesn't have a clue or he's pushed into a corner, then he blames it on Obama. You remember COVID. Think about COVID. Well, Obama, they left the shelves empty. Never mentioning the fact that whatever the pandemic team that the president tried to assemble on his way out of office, Trump got rid of it. He canceled it out. But now all of a sudden, he can't revel in his own glory. His ego is about to take a hit. So what does he do? Instead of manning up and taking responsibility and just taking the hit. Because you're the president of the United States. The buck stops with you. But no. What does he do? Oh, he blames Obama. When all else fails, blame Obama. But he's the smart one. If I'm smart, and I'm such a genius, and I'm smarter than I'm the smartest person in the room at any given time. Excuse me. In any given room. I'm always the smartest. I don't need to blame nobody else. That's going to make me look weak. But that's what you have. That's what you have. What's at stake, ladies and gentlemen? You have to ask yourself. And, what's going on in Ukraine could very well be going on in America. What happened in Myanmar after the former president claimed the election was rigged and stolen and all could very well happen here. The systems held the last time. They held. They took a serious hit. But the system of checks and balances that we have here in America in place, they held. But now it's more fragile than ever. So the good thing about it is, what should help you sleep better at night is that you, the people, hold the power. You, the people, hold the power. Free and fair elections at stake. Or what's at stake? The validity. The fact of whether the election was a valid, honest election is at stake. Because through nefarious Ways and Means, the president has cast doubt on the American election system. And he caused a lot of people to doubt it, to not want to partake in it, to not trust it, when he's done everything to lose. He did everything to get just one term in office. But yet, out of all the things that he did to take the people who voted for him the first time Trump voters, they don't want to look at that and be honest about the numbers. And I'm pretty sure they have number crunchers there who can kind of guesstimate, maybe based on percentages. But look at the first time Trump voters in 2016, and then turn back around in 2020 and see how many of those same people voted again. This was a fool me twice, shame on me thing. And a lot of people were not going to be fooled twice. But yet the president still was able to sell the big lie that the election was stolen from him, when nothing could be further than the truth. And so, that's what's at stake: honesty, integrity, free and fair elections, peaceful transfers of power. Less mudslinging, and challenge the opponent on his record, on his political record, and less mudslinging. We here at Soluble, this is not something that we take lightly since we've came into being this year in March of 2022. This is not something that we take lightly. We came on the air and decided to put our political thoughts and opinions out there for the American people to listen to maybe help someone get an understanding. But for most of all, we felt as though that's how low things had fallen. And politicians were able to spin. They was able to duck and dodge questions. So, we felt that it was very necessary that, after our day work, and it is strenuous, to come on in the afternoon, nights, evenings, to try to give you our honest political take on what we feel is really going on in Washington, D.C., in American politics. In the hour that we spend on air, we don't have a lot of time. We don't touch on every topic every single time, down to the finest degree, down to the 100% mark. There's so much that's left unsaid. So our intention is to keep bringing it to you, hoping to keep you informed, keep you motivated to get engaged. Because as I said, and it's been proven time and time again, when we have a huge turnout, we can beat the Republicans. We can beat them. And they know this. So now they're so busy redistricting, gerrymandering the districts, coming up with all kind of ways and underhanded ways and means to win elections, because they know that the clock is ticking towards a change in demographic. Plain and simple. Plain and simple. So, they're not going to go with the old saying, if you can't beat them, join them. Their saying is, if you can't beat them, find a way to cheat them. Whatever it takes to defeat them. That's the Republican Party. And that's what's at stake. If you don't have honest, fair elections that the people can see are honest and fair and open, then the democracy will soon begin to crumble. It will soon begin to crumble. And, if you're a former president, or if you're a politician, anyone who is dealing in politics, office holding the public's trust, should not want to tear down the country that they claim to love. But if you're going to lie, steal, and cheat, then that's what you're going to be doing. And you can't be both. You can't be both. You can't, on one hand, love your country, and then on the other hand, you're constantly doing things to undermine institutional norms, classified documents, bribery, the emoluments clause. You have people that's around sensitive material who don't even have the proper security clearance. This is no way to run a government, folks. This is no way to run a government. Everybody's acting. Acting Secretary of Defense. Acting Secretary of Transportation. Everybody's acting. But the thing about it is, this is a real live stage. This is real life. There's no director here to say cut. This is not something that's based on ratings. Trying to get the best rating. That's not what running an American government is about. That's not what it's about. But that's what we had. That's what we had. And, you know, it's safe to say our foreign adversaries probably got somewhat of a leg up during those 4 years because they know that there was ineptitude. They knew that there was a person captaining the ship that was not qualified, that didn't have proper training. And they would take every attempt they could to lead him and direct him into navigating the ship into more choppier, more dangerous, turbulent waters. And it can easily happen. It can easily happen. He can be compromised in some kind of way. Because, first and foremost, his ego. His ego. So, we have 28 days. We're going to begin this week to break down issue by issue and let you, the American people, to decide. What we see here at Soluble is the aisle, the argument from the right side of the aisle and the argument from the left side of the aisle. Put it out there in plain English. The whole honest truth. And let you decide. Let you decide who's best to govern on any which given issue. Who's best to govern us? Who's best to lead us on it? I mean, it is what it is. We know now that, and this is not all Republicans. This is not all Republicans, but we know now that Republicans are sore losers, and it's real hypocritical of them to try to paint the picture otherwise. I mean, and I've said it before, and it is what it is. No spin, no trickery, just the God's honest truth from where we see it here at Soluble. When Hillary Clinton lost, you know, she did question. The American public questioned. Simply because she won the popular vote. So there was reason for question mark. But it was nothing to the extent of January the 6th. Or nothing to the extent of Democratic politicians going around and saying that Trump is not my president. Or that Trump stole the election. Or that the election was rigged for Donald Trump. If Russia interfered, the Republicans didn't care. If Russia interfered with the election of 2016, the Republicans didn't care. That says a lot. That should, draw an audible gasp. when it was discovered way back then. And these are the type of things that made that caused Soluble to come into being, because we just, from our point of view, we just kept gradually, slowly inching towards a cliff that had, we feel like here at Soluble, had we went over the side, then that would have been the end of democracy as we know it. So we came into being. It wasn't something that we took lightly, that we took for a joke. But this is what we saw was at stake: American democracy, and the effective role that it plays in making the lives of American citizens better. The role that it plays in making Americans safer, making the continent, making the country safer, stronger, militarily, religiously, faithfully, culturally. So we asked our listeners, our viewers, to take it serious. Think about, really take a long, hard look at what's at stake and think about it. Where we've come from as a country, where we're going, where we've been. And, if we look back at where we've been, all the bad places that we've been, all the bad times that we've been in, to go back there is not going to make us better as a country. It's not going to make us stronger as a country. Right now, we're in trouble when, a lot of our military veterans are committing suicide. We need experienced politicians in there. That's what's at stake. The backbone of our freedom. The soldiers who put it all on the line to defend us. And that's going to be one of the things that we cover. We have to look out for these guys. We have to take care of them. Because, we owe it to them because of the sound sleep that we can have on a nightly basis without worrying, without wondering if freedom is going to be there tomorrow. But that's just one example. Our military veterans, committing suicide at the rate that they are. That's just one of the examples. But that's why there are a lot of things at stake here when it comes to the midterm elections and hiring wannabe beginner politicians. That's why it's important. What is the vision for our veterans who have been fighting war abroad when they come home? How do we help them? How do we benefit them when they come home from the war? When all they're trained all day, every day to do is fight and be a war machine, be a killing machine. How do we help them when they come home? That's just one of the many things that's plaguing this country. But it's vitally important because, like I said, these soldiers are ones who are on the front line defending freedom. And by all means, we need to keep them strong, mind, body, and soul. So this is not the time for beginners. This is not the time for beginners at all. So we hope that we have been eye-opening, another refresher course, on the importance of voting and why we should take it seriously, especially in this day and age. The Republic is only 240 something odd years old. 240 something odd years old. That's not an old age for a country. That's not a long-lasting existence for a country. And yet here we are at 240 something odd years, and we're living in a time of very fragile, very, very fragile democracy. And so Soluble came into being to try to help find a solution, not to showboat, not to put ourselves in the limelight, not for fame and fortune and glamour, but because democracy is at stake. And we plan to tell it like it is. And then let you, the American people, the American voter, decide. So that concludes our podcast on what's at stake coming up to the midterms in 28 days. We'll touch on several issues this week, and we'll argue a point of view from both sides of the aisle, as to what their visions are, what their answers and or solutions are for the things that are affecting or the things that are on the minds of the American voter. So we're going to start out with crime. On our next podcast, we're going to start out with the issue of crime in America and what Republicans can do about it, or willing to do, or talk about doing, and what Democrats can do, or willing to do, or talk about doing when it comes to crime in America. We thank you for joining us tonight. We've tried, and we hope that we could have been eye-opening, and with the facts and the statements that we put out, let it be a guiding force in how you cast your ballot, how you think about which way, which side of the aisle your ballot is going to fall. And that's our purpose here, night in and night out here at Soluble. So 28 days, folks, 28 days. And we'll be getting ready to see, how the country is going to be led, by which political ideology that is going to be led. And we'll bring you all the facts from now until then. So we thank you for joining us. We hope that, we can have been informative and, eye-opening in many ways to you tonight with this broadcast. So until we see you again with our podcast on crime from both sides of the aisle, this is Soluble signing out. We'd like to thank you for joining us. This is Soluble. Good night.